Imagine waking up one morning to news that shakes the very foundation of your country's foreign relations. Breaking news has hit Canada like a storm. The United States and Canada, historically close allies, are now officially at odds. And not just that. Canada has just signed a massive deal with China, a move that experts say could redefine North American and global politics. This isn't just politics. This is history in the making. You're watching The Maple Doctrine, and today we're diving deep into the story that every Canadian needs to understand. But before we get started, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe, because the full story is intense and you don't want to miss any updates. For decades, Canada and the United States have shared a relationship that is often described as special. We share the world's longest undefended border, countless economic partnerships, and cultural connections that run deep. From trade agreements to military collaborations, our countries have relied on each other for security, stability, and growth. But now, everything is changing. Analysts are calling this moment a turning point, something that might not have happened for generations. So, what led to this dramatic shift, and what does it mean for the average Canadian? It all began quietly, almost unnoticed, in boardrooms and government offices. Tensions have been simmering for years, with disagreements over trade tariffs, energy exports, and diplomatic policies. The Trump era introduced a more confrontational approach, and while some hoped that normalcy would return under new leadership, recent events suggest otherwise. Canada, feeling cornered by certain U.S. demands and looking for new opportunities, has made a bold choice, aligning itself more closely with China. This is a strategic decision that has huge implications, not just economically, but politically and socially as well. The deal itself is massive. While the exact details are still under wraps, insiders indicate that it involves billions in trade investments, joint infrastructure projects, and new technology partnerships. Experts say this deal could give Canada access to Chinese markets at a scale never seen before, potentially boosting Canadian exports in key sectors such as energy, agriculture, and technology. But it's not just about money. This move signals a shift in Canada's foreign policy strategy, one that prioritizes diversification of alliances over traditional loyalty. In simpler terms, Canada is saying, we can't rely on one partner alone anymore. We need multiple options to secure our future. Many Canadians are reacting with shock and curiosity. Social media platforms are buzzing with opinions. Some celebrate the move as a courageous step toward independence in foreign policy. Others fear the consequences of upsetting a neighbor that has historically been a safety net in times of crisis. The Maple Doctrine has been following these developments closely, analyzing each statement, each leak, and each hint of the next move. And what we're seeing is clear. This isn't a temporary disagreement, it's a structural change. The way Canada interacts with the world could be different from now on. Economically, the stakes are high. The U.S. has been Canada's largest trading partner for decades. Our supply chains, our businesses, and our industries have long depended on this relationship. Redirecting focus toward China might open new markets, but it also carries risks. Tariffs, sanctions, and trade barriers could become part of the reality if the U.S. sees this as a direct challenge. Meanwhile, China is eager to strengthen its influence in North America. In Canada, the U.S. move offers Beijing an opportunity to gain strategic advantages in industries critical to the 21st century economy. But this isn't just about trade numbers or GDP figures. Consider the broader geopolitical implications. By pivoting toward China, Canada may find itself balancing between two superpowers with competing global visions. Military alliances, international agreements, and global policymaking could all be affected. Canada AES diplomats now face the unprecedented task of navigating a path that satisfies national interests while avoiding outright confrontation with a historic ally. And for Canadians watching at home, it can feel confusing. One day, you're seeing familiar friends across the border. The next day, you're witnessing a foreign policy realignment that feels like it could reshape your daily life. The impact on ordinary Canadians could be both direct and subtle. On one hand, we might see new jobs, investments, and opportunities arising from collaboration with China. On the other hand, there could be consequences for industries that rely heavily on U.S. markets. Farmers, manufacturers, and energy producers may need to adjust quickly. The financial sector could experience volatility as investors react to uncertainty. And everyday Canadians could notice subtle shifts in prices, availability of goods, and even travel regulations. So why now? Timing is critical. Analysts suggest that Canada's decision is influenced by several converging factors. The first is a desire for economic resilience. With global markets in flux and trade disruptions more common than ever, Canada is seeking to ensure it is not overly dependent on any single partner. The second is political signaling. By taking a bold stand, Canada demonstrates its ability to assert independence on the world stage. And finally, there is strategic foresight. The deal with China is likely designed to position Canada as a central player in the emerging Asia-Pacific economic sphere, which experts believe will dominate global growth in the coming decades. This move has already sparked debates in political circles. Members of Parliament are divided. Some hail it as visionary leadership, while others warn of unintended consequences. Internationally, reactions are mixed. The U.S. government has not yet issued a full response, but sources indicate that senior officials are closely monitoring the situation, concerned about both economic and security implications. China, on the other hand, is openly celebrating the deal, presenting it as a testament to Canada's willingness to engage in mutually beneficial partnerships. Public opinion in Canada is split as well. Canadians value their relationship with the U.S., and many are wary of disrupting decades of cooperation. Yet there is also excitement about new opportunities, particularly in tech, infrastructure, and trade diversification. The Maple Doctrine has received countless messages from viewers asking what this means for their own lives: jobs, investments, travel, and security. And the honest answer is that while the full impact will take time to unfold, one thing is certain: Canada is entering a new chapter in its history. For businesses, this is a critical moment. CEOs and industry leaders are evaluating how to adapt. Some see China as a lucrative market with immense potential for growth. Others are cautious, aware of the complexities of operating within a global system where political and economic alliances can shift rapidly. Supply chain strategies will need reassessment, partnerships may be renegotiated, and investment priorities could change dramatically. This is a time for careful planning, but also bold thinking. Meanwhile, ordinary citizens might wonder how this affects them in tangible ways. Travel to the U.S. could become more complicated if tensions rise. Prices for certain goods might fluctuate depending on trade agreements and tariffs. Canadian brands seeking to expand internationally may find new opportunities in China, but they may also face obstacles if U.S.-Canada relations sour further. Education, technology, and research collaborations could also see shifts as institutions explore new partnerships abroad. Critics argue that Canada is taking a risk by upsetting the balance with the U.S. They point to historical examples where misaligned foreign policy decisions have led to economic downturns or security concerns. But supporters insist that the world is changing and Canada must adapt to remain competitive. They highlight that reliance on a single partner, even a powerful one like the U.S., can be limiting and dangerous. By engaging with China, Canada diversifies its options and increases its negotiating power on the global stage. At the heart of this decision is a broader question about Canada's identity and autonomy. The nation has long been seen as a mediator, a friendly neighbor, and a stable partner. But this move demonstrates that Canada is willing to assert its interests boldly, even if it means challenging a long-standing alliance. It is a declaration of independence, and it signals to the world that Canada will chart its own course based on strategic thinking and long-term vision. As the news continues to unfold, the Maple Doctrine will keep analyzing every development. From trade announcements to political statements, each move is significant. For viewers, staying informed is crucial, not just for understanding politics, but for anticipating how global decisions may touch everyday life. And remember, if you haven't already, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the Maple Doctrine, and turn on notifications. This story is evolving fast, and you'll want to stay updated on every new detail. As we continue to unpack this historic shift, it is important to understand the ripple effects that Canada's decision is creating, not just in the boardrooms of Ottawa or Beijing, but on the streets of Toronto, Vancouver, Calgary, and even smaller towns across the country. The reality is that global politics doesn't exist in a vacuum. Every treaty, every trade deal, every diplomatic handshake eventually reaches the daily lives of ordinary Canadians, whether through job opportunities, prices at the grocery store, or even travel restrictions. And that's why this story is so relevant to you, your family, and your future. To truly grasp the impact, we need to look at the economic implications first. Canada's pivot toward China opens doors that were previously closed or extremely limited. Think about the scale here. China has the world's second largest economy, and access to that market could mean new contracts, new exports, and a boost for industries like tech, agriculture, energy, and manufacturing. Canadian companies could start supplying Chinese consumers with everything from advanced machinery to premium maple syrup, or even cutting-edge tech products. But here's the catch. This isn't a guarantee of instant success. China's market is competitive, regulated, and often requires strategic partnerships to thrive. That means Canadian businesses need to adapt quickly, innovate constantly, and play by the new rules if they want to see real gains. On the flip side, there's the question of the United States. Historically, the U.S. has been Canada's largest trading partner, and any perceived pivot away can trigger economic ripples. If tensions escalate, we might see tariffs or delays in cross-border logistics, which could directly affect the cost of everyday products. Industries like automotive, agriculture, and energy are particularly vulnerable. Canadian farmers, for example, have long relied on U.S. markets to sell crops and livestock. A strained relationship could mean looking for alternative buyers. China is one option, but logistics, pricing, and regulations are different and can pose challenges. This is where Canadian businesses and citizens alike face tough choices. It's not just about selling goods, it is about adapting to a new geopolitical reality, where decisions made in far-off capitals can change the trajectory of your local economy. Some businesses will thrive, some will struggle, and others will have to reinvent themselves entirely. The key takeaway is that Canada's bold move is a gamble, one that has the potential for great reward but comes with real risks. Politically, the shift is equally fascinating. Inside Ottawa, debates are heating up. Some politicians argue that Canada is finally taking control of its destiny, stepping out of the shadow of its powerful neighbor, and positioning itself as a global player in its own right. Others warn that disrupting decades of stable relations could have unintended consequences, not just economically, but in terms of security, intelligence sharing, and defense cooperation. Military strategists are watching closely, particularly because Canada and the US have been joint participants in numerous defense initiatives. While this deal with China isn't directly military, geopolitics rarely exists in isolation. Citizens, meanwhile, are reacting across a spectrum of emotions. Social media is alive with debate. Some Canadians feel proud that their country is asserting independence on the global stage, celebrating a new era of diplomacy and trade. Others feel concerned, questioning what it means for their families, their jobs, and even their safety. It's a mixture of hope and anxiety, excitement and uncertainty. And as always, the Maple Doctrine is here to break down the facts from the opinions, giving viewers clarity in a complex situation. Education and research are also set to experience changes. Canada has long collaborated with both the US and European nations in science, technology, and higher education. The China deal could open doors to joint research projects, university partnerships, and advanced technology sharing, particularly in areas like artificial intelligence, renewable energy, and biotechnology. This means students and researchers may soon find themselves working on projects with a more global scope, potentially gaining access to resources that were previously unavailable. But as with business and trade, there are regulatory and political hurdles to navigate. It's also worth noting the symbolic value of this move. Canada has always been seen as a mediator and a friendly neighbor on the global stage. By signing a major deal with China, the country is sending a signal to the world. Canada is willing to chart its own course, take calculated risks, and pursue opportunities wherever they arise. This isn't about abandoning the US. It's about diversifying alliances and reducing dependency. For a country of just under 40 million people, that's a significant statement about self-determination and strategic vision. Culturally, this shift may also influence perceptions. Canadians have a strong sense of identity tied to being diplomatic, fair, and cooperative. Aligning more closely with China could introduce new cultural exchanges, business norms, and social influences that were less prominent before. Imagine Canadian cities hosting large-scale cultural initiatives, Chinese investment in local communities, and new tourism dynamics. While these changes might sound abstract, over time they shape the way people live, work, and interact in society. One of the most fascinating aspects of this story is the balance of opportunity and risk. On one hand, Canada gains access to a booming economy, investment capital, and long-term strategic partnerships. On the other hand, every step toward China is a delicate dance with the United States, which remains a neighbor, a trading partner, and a cultural reference point for most Canadians. Diplomacy will need to be precise, public messaging carefully calibrated, and long-term planning robust. Every decision will be scrutinized, not just by politicians and economists, but by ordinary citizens who feel the consequences in their daily lives. The role of media and information is also crucial. Canadians are seeking answers. How will this impact my community, my job, my travel plans? How does this influence Canada's standing on the global stage? The Maple Doctrine has been committed to providing clear, reliable insights. Our goal is to help viewers make sense of a complex and fast-changing world, and to understand what this historic pivot truly means for Canada and for each citizen individually. Meanwhile, international observers are watching closely. China is framing this as a victory for diplomacy and partnership. The US is analyzing potential impacts on trade, defense, and political influence. Europe is quietly observing, considering how this new dynamic might affect global supply chains and alliances. And in this environment, Canada is positioned as a key player capable of shaping discussions about trade, energy, and technology on a global scale. The social and psychological impact should not be underestimated either. Canadians are accustomed to stability in international relations. This sudden pivot can create feelings of uncertainty, anxiety, or even excitement depending on one's perspective. Families may worry about travel, students about study opportunities abroad, and business owners about contracts and partnerships. Yet, these challenges also bring opportunities for innovation, adaptability, and growth. How Canadians respond at the local and individual level will be a testament to the country's resilience and foresight. Political analysts predict that the next few months will be critical. Government officials will need to navigate diplomatic communications, economic negotiations, and public messaging. Any misstep could escalate tensions or reduce confidence among citizens. At the same time, this period will likely reveal the strengths of Canada's new strategy, particularly in terms of securing deals, attracting investment, and leveraging China's economic power without unnecessarily antagonizing the U.S. And let's not forget the human side of these changes. Behind every policy, every trade deal, every international agreement, there are people whose lives are affected. Workers, students, families, entrepreneurs. They are all stakeholders in this new chapter of Canada's story. Understanding the tangible effects, listening to concerns, and adapting policies accordingly will be key to ensuring that this historic pivot benefits the nation as a whole. It's also important to consider long-term implications. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, this decision could define Canada's economic resilience, technological leadership, and diplomatic influence. By establishing strong ties with China, Canada is investing in potential growth markets, access to critical resources, and global partnerships that may prove invaluable in an increasingly multipolar world. At the same time, the country must maintain channels with the U.S., ensuring that historical partnerships and trade opportunities are not entirely lost. The Maple Doctrine has been receiving a flood of questions from viewers. How will this affect the average citizen's finances? Will travel to the U.S. become more restricted? Will Canadian businesses flourish or struggle? While the answers are complex, one thing is clear. Canada is entering an era of bold strategy, calculated risk, and global ambition. For every individual, the key is awareness, adaptability, and engagement with the news as it unfolds. In the coming weeks, we can expect more official statements, economic reports, and political analysis. Canadians will be watching carefully to see if promises translate into tangible benefits, jobs, investment, infrastructure, and trade growth. The balance between opportunity and caution will define the public narrative and shape policy decisions moving forward. Before we move on to the final part of this story, let's pause and reflect. This is more than a trade deal or a diplomatic shift. It's a statement about independence, strategic thinking, and vision. Canada is showing that it's willing to take risks, embrace new opportunities, and pursue its interests on the global stage. That message alone has the potential to reshape perceptions, both at home and abroad. And as we continue to track developments, your engagement is critical. Comment below with your thoughts, share this video with friends and family, and keep the discussion going. The more Canadians understand these decisions, the better prepared we are for the future. The Maple Doctrine will continue to bring you detailed analysis, updates, and insights so that you can stay informed and ahead of the curve. As we reach the final chapter of this historic story, it is clear that Canada's decision to pivot toward China while redefining its relationship with the United States marks the beginning of a new era. But what does this mean for the average Canadian watching at home? What are the real-life impacts, the challenges, and the opportunities? Let's break it down. First, let's talk about the economic horizon. The China deal promises access to one of the largest consumer markets in the world. For Canadian businesses, this could mean a significant boost in exports, new investments in infrastructure, and collaborations in technology sectors that have long been constrained by geographic and political limitations. Industries like energy, agriculture, and manufacturing stand to gain the most in terms of new contracts and market diversification. The deal might also bring innovation incentives, joint research initiatives, and technology transfers that could elevate Canada's role in global tech development. However, as promising as these opportunities are, there are risks. The United States remains Canada's largest trading partner. Any significant strain in U.S.-Canada relations could lead to higher tariffs, slower logistics, or even limitations in cross-border collaboration. Businesses that rely heavily on U.S. consumers may need to adapt quickly, balancing new opportunities with existing dependencies. Financial markets are already reacting, with investors weighing the potential gains of new Chinese partnerships against the risks of tension with the U.S. This is a delicate balancing act, one that requires strategic foresight and nimble decision-making from both government and industry leaders. On the political front, this pivot signifies a bold statement about Canada's sovereignty and independence. By diversifying alliances, Canada demonstrates that it is willing to take calculated risks to secure its long-term interests. It's no longer just about maintaining a friendly neighbor relationship. It's about asserting influence on the global stage, seeking partnerships that benefit the nation strategically, and being prepared to navigate a multipolar world. This is a country declaring its intent to play a bigger, more active role internationally. For everyday Canadians, the effects might be subtle at first, but will become more tangible over time. Prices of certain goods may fluctuate depending on trade agreements, supply chains may shift, and industries could see job creation or restructuring. Travel dynamics may change, particularly for business travelers or students as international relations and visa processes evolve. Education, research, and innovation sectors could experience growth and diversification as new global collaborations take shape. Cultural and social impacts are also emerging. China's involvement in Canada could lead to new cultural exchanges, investments in community infrastructure, and tourism initiatives that were previously limited. Canadian cities may see an increase in projects funded by Chinese investments, ranging from technology parks to cultural centers, providing new opportunities for local communities. The blending of economic opportunity and cultural exchange could subtly reshape aspects of Canadian society in the coming years. One of the most compelling aspects of the story is the balance between challenge and opportunity. Canada has opened the door to immense potential gains, but must also navigate the complexities of global diplomacy, economic competition, and domestic expectations. Every decision will be under scrutiny, not just by politicians and economists, but by citizens who feel the real-life effects. Adaptability, resilience, and strategic planning will define success in this new era. The Maple Doctrine has been following every development, breaking down complex international relations into terms that are understandable and actionable for Canadians. From policy announcements to trade reports, we've analyzed how these decisions ripple through society. And one thing is clear, this pivot is not a temporary maneuver. It is a structural shift in foreign policy, signaling Canada's readiness to assert its independence while carefully managing the risks of a changing global order. Public opinion remains divided. Some Canadians feel proud that the country is taking bold steps on the global stage, celebrating the ability to diversify trade and build new alliances. Others remain cautious, concerned about potential tensions with the United States and what that might mean for security, economy, and daily life. Yet the conversation itself is important. It shows that Canadians are engaged, aware, and invested in the nation's future, exactly what democracy relies upon. And as this debate continues to grow, the real question becomes not whether change is happening, but how well Canada can manage it. Because in global politics, momentum matters. The countries that prepare early often benefit the most, and the ones that hesitate sometimes pay the price later. As this story unfolds, it's important for Canadians to stay informed, engaged, and proactive. Business owners need to assess opportunities in new markets while maintaining existing relationships. Students and researchers should explore new collaborations that could open doors for learning and innovation. Families and communities need to understand how global politics can impact local life, from job markets to consumer goods to travel. Awareness is the first step toward making informed decisions in an ever-changing world. Looking ahead, analysts predict that Canada's bold move could influence global dynamics in several ways. By strengthening ties with China, Canada may gain leverage in international trade negotiations, secure strategic investments, and increase its influence in emerging markets. Simultaneously, Canada will need to maintain dialogue and cooperation with the United States, ensuring that historical alliances are respected even as new paths are explored. This dual approach, strategic diversification while managing traditional partnerships, could serve as a model for other nations navigating a multipolar world. The lessons for Canadians are clear. First, bold decisions require careful planning and risk management. Second, diversification, whether in trade, alliances, or economic partnerships, is key to resilience. Third, staying informed, engaged, and adaptable is critical in an era of rapid change. The Maple Doctrine is committed to helping Canadians understand these lessons, providing insights that empower viewers to navigate the complexities of a shifting global landscape. And let's not forget the human element. Behind every policy, trade deal, or diplomatic announcement, there are individuals affected: workers, entrepreneurs, students, and families. Their lives, opportunities, and challenges reflect the broader story of Canada's strategic choices. By keeping the public informed and involved, Canada strengthens both its democracy and its ability to respond effectively to global challenges. As we conclude, one thing is undeniable. Canada's historic pivot toward China and its redefined relationship with the United States is a moment that will be studied for years to come. It is a story of strategy, courage, and vision. For Canadians, it is both an opportunity and a challenge, a chance to participate in shaping the future while carefully navigating the risks that come with bold choices. If you're watching this, remember that your engagement matters. Comment below with your thoughts and share this video with friends and family. How do you see Canada's future evolving in light of these decisions? Will this pivot strengthen the nation, or will it create new challenges? Your voice is part of the story, just as much as the policymakers, analysts, and global actors. The Maple Doctrine will continue tracking developments, analyzing policy shifts, and breaking down how these decisions impact Canadians at every level. From economic opportunities to political debates to cultural exchanges, staying informed is the key to staying empowered in a rapidly changing world. So, as Canada embarks on this bold journey, let's reflect on the larger picture. History is being written right now, and it's happening in real time. The choices made today will echo for decades, shaping the economy, society, and Canada's role in the global arena. This is a moment to watch closely, to understand deeply, and to engage actively. Before we sign off, one final reminder. If you found this analysis helpful or eye-opening, hit that like button, subscribe to the Maple Doctrine, and share this video with your friends, family, and colleagues. Encourage discussion, spark debate, and let's collectively understand what this historic shift means for Canada. The conversation doesn't end here. It's just beginning. Thank you for watching. Stay informed and stay engaged. Canada's story is evolving, and with your attention and awareness, you become part of that journey. The Maple Doctrine will be right here with you every step of the way, bringing clarity, context, and insight to the most important developments shaping our nation's future.